This is an AMI podcast.
Autumn carries more gold in its pockets than all the other seasons. This is AMI Audiobook Review, the weekly podcast where we chat all things audiobooks. I'm your host, Ramya Amudan. This quote is because, yes, it is fall. Figuratively, definitely not officially, but it feels like fall and it's just so beautiful. And the word gold is what really stuck out to me in this quote. I read a few quotes after this one and just kept coming back to this to feature because it's true. There's this nice, shiny, but not so over ecstatic feel about having colors in autumn. The fall colors, as we call them, are just so beautiful. And this is coming from a colorblind person, putting my hands up there, that it's totally not something I see, but something I feel. So Jim Bishop, thank you for this quote. I just love describing fall. I love hearing descriptions of fall, and they're so fun. They're, of course, colorful, and it feels also like this cocoon of a season that wraps itself around us, getting us prepared for the winter, warming us up, not exactly feeling like hibernation yet, but you're really feeling that toast in the air. And of course, not to mention all the gratitude, all the harvesting, all the prep for love of the fall and winter months, because we're going to continue with that love. Now, let's take a look at the CELA homepage. We like to take a glance at the featured titles at celalibrary.ca. And this is the Center for Equitable Library Access. Ashfall Prophecy by Peter Tsatsanis. And this is an adventure stories. We're not going to take a look at this book today, but hint, hint, next week we might have a pause or play on it. The Queer Evangelist by Sherry DeNovo. This is an LGBTQ plus biography. Twice a Quinceañera by Damel Said Mendez. This is a contemporary romance, and that's it for the featured titles. Before we get to our guest of the day, Nazreen, let's talk about something that's trending, a little bit of a collaboration and definitely news in the audiobook world.
Yeah, so I'm a Spotify user, so I'm pretty excited about this. We're talking about how Spotify is in the process of launching their audiobook service soon. And the Hollywood Reporter stated it is going to be a trial and test phase initially before the company commits full-time to audiobooks. The streaming service provider had earlier stated that they are pooling in resources to diversify into the hot new audiobook and podcasting business because, that's what's hot now. The company has been offering podcast services since the fall of 2018, and they've seen an upscale on that. So I'm wondering, would you shift to Spotify for audiobook services eventually?
Yeah. And I'm saying this with the confidence that no matter how many music streaming services there are, I've been a Spotify person and I've never switched over since then. I don't know if it's just a comfort thing. I don't like change. But anyways, Spotify works for me. They're quite accessible. Even with contrast, I'm a fan. So if I were to get my dose of audiobooks through Spotify, why keep switching platforms? Might as well keep it all in one and stick to Spotify for audiobooks as well. Right now, the two most apps, 3 if you include Netflix, the 2 most apps used on my phone are Spotify and Audible. So if I could just stick all that into one place, I'm not loyal, man. I'll switch over.
I'm not loyal. I honestly, I feel like it would be so much easier. Just at the end of the day, one streaming service. And I feel like Spotify is so easy to use.
It is.
Overall. So I'm very confident that this would be a success eventually. So I think a lot of people would be excited about this change.
I think so too. We're keeping our fingers crossed. If you're a fan of Spotify and a fan of audiobooks, we're keeping our fingers crossed on that bigger picture level of let's keep audiobooks moving. Let's get it out there, spread the love, get everybody on board because they believe in the success and the marketing and the business of audiobooks. I'm honestly so psyched that, even though they say testing, yeah, bear with caution. I think that it's wonderful that Spotify is leaping on board. And I'm honestly a little bit surprised that they haven't done it sooner.
Yeah.
Just
I don't
saying.
know why. I don't know why.
I don't know either. But anyway, we'll keep posted on this one, right, Niz? Because it's a big news story.
I will bring it back.
Awesome. Well, not sure how you feel about books feeling lost in translation, but our guest for this week, Peter Tsatsanis, host of Peter's Book Club, is going to express his love for reading books in other languages. This is AMI Audiobook Review, the weekly podcast where we chat all things audiobooks. And if you want to give us your recommendations, because we love highlighting those, give us a call, 1-866-509-4545. You can also email us, feedback@ami.ca. So I'm your host, Ramya Amuddin, and let's get into another audiobook review chat with an avid audiobook listener. We're opening up the space because we love to check in with all of you, our community and avid audiobook listening or listeners. Peter Tsatsanis is the person joining us today. We welcome him in. He's the host of Peter's Book Club, which is shared widely by the Toronto Visionaries, and we love to check in with our friends who run book clubs because this is how we get the community together. Peter, thank you for coming on Audiobook Review. How's it going?
Thank you for the invitation. It's going okay. We're back to in person.
Mm-hmm.
Not too many are coming out. I guess the COVID is still a problem with some of us, but it's going well.
And how does it feel to host in person? I guess, COVID and all that in mind as well, but versus running something virtually, especially for book club. Do you have a reason for keep going?
Well, obviously we did it for about 2.5 years now. Well, two and something virtually,
Yeah.
And it works well. But there are many types of difficulties with the audio, the equipment, and so on. And we always encounter background noise, that kind of thing. So it is really a problem doing it virtually.
Yeah.
I think that's the main thing. That's why we decided maybe it's time to go back. But again, COVID is not over, and people are somewhat hesitant to come back.
Of course.
But probably after this meeting next week, we probably will go back virtually at least for the winter months.
It's kind of a trial and error situation, right? With any kind of hangouts, socials, gatherings, meetings, being able to say, okay, are we ready to go back in person? And then, like you're saying, to take the step back again and say, maybe we're not. But nonetheless, you're gathering a bunch of people to talk about books. How often do you guys meet?
We meet once a month, except for July and December.
Mm-hmm.
And it's our third Wednesday of the month. And it's usually an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on what people have to say.
And is it one book for discussion, or do you do multiple?
Just one book for discussion, yeah. And we try to pick books that are on CELA and the Toronto Public Library, if it is in audio format, Human Voice. And it is also in large print because we have one or two people that do have low vision and do read large print, and they prefer that to listening. And as you know, listening to audiobooks can be somewhat difficult at sometimes, depending on the narrator.
Mm-hmm. And is there a method for how you choose the books every month?
It's mostly from recommendations of the people that have joined the book club, but because we operate out of the Deer Park Library, we have the head librarian there to look at what's happening in other book clubs, etc., and make some recommendations for us. And usually, they try to get some Canadian authors in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get a list of about 20 books, and I put them out to the members. and then they choose which ones for the 10 months they want to listen to. We do a synopsis and everything, so they can see what genre is of interest to them.
So do you pick the 10 books for the months all in advance?
All in advance.
Oh,
As soon
wow.
as we get the list from the library and the recommendations from the members of the book club, I put up the list together, send an email, and ask for what they prefer to listen for the
Nice.
year.
That's an interesting
and then
approach.
If there are any new books that come out, etc., we make a list of them, and then the year after we list those as books we should possibly be listening to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is an interesting approach because it's a totally different feel to have a book list ahead of time for the upcoming year. I mean, obviously, everyone gets an input on what ends up getting chosen,
Yes.
but you kind of know what you're looking forward to.
Yes, and well, one of the problems we've encountered is that sometimes, I mean, on CELA the books are available always
Right.
if we can find them in a human voice. Sometimes they are not, and we have to go to the Toronto Public Library, and there may be human voice there, but there may be a waiting list for some of them. Same thing
Right.
with the large print books. And so people want to know ahead of time what they want to read so that they can prepare, basically.
Okay. That's interesting. And is there a theme for the year, or not necessarily, like
No,
classics,
not
mysteries?
necessarily at
Okay.
all. It really is up to the members what they want to listen to
Now,
and discuss.
for you personally, Peter, how many books do you get through a month?
I've been busy on another project. I'm doing some math stuff for young people, and so it's taken me a while to do this. But I try to do about 2 to 3 a month, and a lot of the books that I get too are from PAL reading services because
Mm-hmm.
I like to read French novels that have been translated, but you cannot find them in audio or Audible or anything. So I will use PAL reading services to read some of those.
Yeah, shout out to Powell Reading Services, always doing an amazing job. Our very own Danielle McLaughlin on our network.
They do, don't they? Yeah.
Yes, one of the voices and volunteers. So, because you're such an avid reader, like 2 to 3 books a month, I can barely do one during the summer. I'm finding it very difficult to stick to just audiobook listening. But do you take a lot of recommendations, Peter, or do you kind of settle into what you already know and things like that?
It's mostly I look at books that have been there, that are coming out. I mean, the things I listen to on my own without the book club members recommending, etc., are usually nonfiction because some nonfiction is not available. I like to read science books, and they're not available in audio, or if they are, they're on Audible, and of course that's costly. But I do get them that way sometimes, so those are the ones I tend to read. But as far as novels go, I tend to go through 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the others would be nonfiction.
Right.
And as I said, my interest is in math, and that's what I try to read as well.
So can you
which is not
explain
so
that?
easy to get.
Yeah, I was gonna say, give us an example because I'm really am wondering what that means. Your interest in math and how that
Well,
translates
like
to reading.
a book like The Universe Speaks in Numbers
Yes. Okay.
is, it's a little bit of physics and a little bit of math, but it's a description of how the universe works and how math is used to help us understand the universe. That kind of stuff.
Are there parts of that book that are hard to translate in audio?
Yes and no. I mean, if many times they refer, if you download the PDF files, etc., you can look at the pictures because they will refer to pictures, things of that sort, and so it makes it difficult from that point of view. But I'm not terribly interested in that. I try to get some idea of what is happening more than the details.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Now, I've avoided math pretty much my entire life, but it seems like a different angle to think about math, more like the mentality of or the use of math in kind
Yeah.
of everything.
Well, there are some very good books by an author from England. She writes on things that are happening in math and tries to do it for younger people to get them interested in the subject. And her name's Chank. I've forgotten the first name now, but they're very good books. And as I said, she's such a writer that can put them in audio format and make them understandable, and avoids equations but can't give verbal descriptions of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's of help. Now, if you have the book and you can use your TV cameras, etc., to look at the pictures. Like I have low vision, so sometimes I do get the book, and we'll look at the PDF file, download the PDF file, and look at the stuff on my CCTV machine that I have at home.
Right, as part of a companion context.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Now, do you have? We know you're connecting your math with your reading. Does your preference go beyond that for nonfiction?
Yes, I mean, since I was very young, when I came to Canada, I didn't speak any English. I had to learn to read, and I got very interested in visiting the library because parents could not afford books, obviously, as immigrants and so on. So I used the library a lot, and I got interested in basically English literature, English from England, and started reading the English authors like Thomas Hardy, D.H. Lawrence, and others. So that's where my interest began in literature.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. And I've continued since then.
Yeah.
Math was kind of a side thing to find a job, and I became a teacher eventually.
And I know that so many of us do this, math versus English thing, right? Are you more interested in, or what did you always try to avoid in school? But your interest in English as well as math seem, like you have a background of both, of having to delve deeply into both, which is kind of cool. What about right now? Are you reading anything?
Well, we're reading for the book club. We're reading Our Darkest Night, which is a novel set in Italy during the Second World War, and it is it is somewhat of a love story, but it is a very reflective book by the characters, in that they talk about their trials and tribulations and their thoughts about what is happening, and I think the book club members will enjoy that one. So that's the one we are reading now for the book club.
And I believe that was a featured title on the CELA homepage for a bit as well.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. So
I don't pay attention to that very much because it's hard to when I use my computer, it's just even with Zoom text, it's just very difficult to navigate things, I find.
For sure. And but you're keeping all that in mind when you say human narrated, very accessible.
Yes, well, as because I chair the club, I have to make sure that there are things that are available, and we did try to listen to one or two narrated by machines, synthetic voice, and nobody really enjoyed that. It was very dreadful. So we definitely are going to avoid. But there are books that are of interest that are not available in human voice, and they are synthetic. I don't know if you remember the book Educated.
No.
By the young woman, Mormon woman from I think it was Idaho. That had to leave the family and become educated, and she eventually ended up in England studying in Oxford, etc. So that's it's nonfiction, but it was a memoir, and it was very enjoyable. I don't know if yes, the title was Educated. Now I've forgotten the name of the author.
Okay. And that was available in synth only, or
And that was available in synthetic voice only.
okay, got it.
But people were interested in listening to it.
The title,
and
yeah.
discussing it. So
Yeah, the story sounds incredible.
yeah.
And I wanted to ask you for nonfiction versus fiction. Do you have a favorite fiction tale or title?
Well, we do read. I mean, most of our reading is fiction. Out of the 10 books, we might read one nonfiction.
Nonfiction. It's just for you personally, you love the nonfiction.
I do myself, yes, and usually from Audible because I don't find good nonfiction. The odd time I do from Sela, but Sela doesn't do many of those. Now, the Toronto Public Library does occasionally, so I will use them. But yes, but the books that I know that our members have really enjoyed. Do you know The Water Dancer by Tanesh Coates?
That one I've heard of, yes.
Yes. So that was a very interesting read and very good discussion. We also... yeah.
When you say... Sorry, Nisreen, I think you're still on cue. Thank you. Sorry about that. And when you talk about, going back to one of your points on the books that you want to find but have some challenges finding, which is why you turn to PAL reading services, do you find a lot of people have challenges like this, or is it just particular books that we might want really badly but they're just not available anywhere? Because that can be pretty frustrating, right?
Yes. Well, in talking to the people at PAL, Mark says that a lot of the nonfiction is not available in human voice narration,
right?
And that's why members of PAL get them to read those kinds of books. Now, fiction is available in audio format. A lot of it is available in audio format, but not necessarily from Sela. You can find it in Audible and other places, but. And so people tend to gravitate to reading nonfiction, getting PAL to read it for them because it's just not available. If you want a book on sailing, you're not going to find it on Sela or anywhere else. So you want PAL to read it to you.
Yeah, something to think about because, if you like things, and we had Ian White on the show like half a year ago, and he was talking about the very, obscure things that he goes down looking into, right? Wanting to read books that are just absolutely not available anywhere, and very, very long books as well. But just the topics that he tries to search for are not easily found. So, you mentioned you like French novels translated to English. Yeah. And if you're looking for that specific type and you can't go browse a library for the physical copies, where do you go, right?
Yeah. Well, that's why I think so much of the PAL Reading Services group. They do such a wonderful job. I mean, Ian is interested in philosophy, so you're not going to find too many philosophy books.
Right.
Not deeper philosophy. You can find popular philosophy once in a while.
But especially in human narrated, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Peter, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. So insightful talking to you, and hope to have you back on soon, and some of your members of the book club,
Yes, and it's good to do this once in a while because, I know of one author that is my favorite. He doesn't get as much status, I guess, as he should. Louis de Bernier. I don't know if you know.
No.
He's well known for Captain Corelli's Mandolin, although the movie was not very, very good, and people probably don't read him now. But
right.
But he is a wonderful, wonderful reader, and author, and if you want a discussion again at some time or other about his novels,
Absolutely.
no problem at all.
There we go. Ending off on a cliffhanger, a teaser for next time chat with you. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time, and have a great book club.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Peter Tsatsanis is the host of Peter's Book Club, and you can check that out through the Toronto Visionaries, the CCB chapter, and that you can go on their website, torontovisionaries.org. I'm Ramya Amuddin. That's the end of today's and this week's episode of AMI Audiobook Review. We'll be back next time, and until then, happy audiobook listening.
This was an AMI podcast. For more accessible media, visit ami.ca.